friends and clients. I am Jennifer Walker Gates, board certified immigration attorney with JLW Immigration Law Group. And I am here today in this video to talk about Biden's new Parole in Place program and the permanent bar. How do these two things interact? I've been getting a lot of questions, a ton of questions from friends and clients about the permanent bar and how this new program is expected to impact individuals who are subject to the permanent bar. So we'll talk about kind of what the parole program requires and what the permanent bar is briefly, but basically I want to talk about how these two things are going to interact and kind of the reasoning behind that and what we're seeing right now. Before I get into the substance of all of that, please take a second and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are here weekly providing updates to the immigrant community about matters of importance. Our mission at JLW Immigration Law Group is to help immigrants get legal status, reunite their families, become U.S. citizens. We want every immigrant in the United States to have the status and the stability and the opportunity that they deserve to contribute to our country, just like they have so far, and enjoy the full benefits of having legal status here. That's what we're all about. So we are providing information for everyone who is going through this process so that you have good, reliable, trustworthy information to help you along the way. Please subscribe, share our channel if you know anyone who could use it, and leave us a comment. I do respond to the comments and I'm happy to do so. Getting to today's topic, the permanent bar is, for anyone who doesn't know, is a provision that is very clearly articulated in the Immigration and Nationality Act that was written by Congress. Congress is supposed to be the governmental body that creates the immigration law. And they created the permanent bar in the year 1996. It took effect April 1st of 1997. And what it says is that anyone who's in the United States without permission on or after April 1st of 1997 is accruing something called unlawful presence in the United States. When you have a year or more of unlawful presence, whether you're getting that all at once in a sequence of simultaneous days, or you're coming and going, once you have that year, 365 days of unlawful presence, if you leave the United States, you have to get a waiver of that unlawful presence to come back for the next 10 years. Okay. So if you want to come back before 10 years outside the US, you have to get a waiver of that unlawful presence. If you try to come back before you have a waiver, either because you're sneaking back across the border, or you're trying to come in with somebody's fake documents, or whatever it may be, if you try to come back, or if you do come back, if you succeed, even if you cross and no one knows that you came in, no one knows that you left, doesn't matter, that 10-year bar becomes what we call the permanent bar. And the reason we call it the permanent bar is because you cannot even apply for a waiver until you've already been outside the United States for at least 10 years. Then you have to apply for a hardship waiver, and it is really tough to win one of those. Not impossible. We have done it. We know people who have spent the 10 years outside the US so that they could get a waiver of the permanent bar. However, most families find this impracticable and not doable. So for millions, literally at least hundreds of thousands of mixed status families in the United States, the permanent bar is preventing one of their members from being able to legalize their status. There is no waiver from inside the US. It is a very harsh, very strict piece of legislation. And so what we are seeing right now with Biden's new parole program, that is supposed to benefit spouses of US citizens who were already married or on or before June 17th, 2023, and who had already accrued 10 years of presence in the United States on June 17th of 2023, and who don't have disqualifying criminal convictions or problems in their records. Those individuals are going to become eligible for this parole in place benefit, where they can submit an application to USCIS, demonstrate that they meet the qualifications, and ostensibly receive what's called parole in place, which basically erases those years of unlawful presence, pretends like they entered the United States with permission instead of without. This is only supposed to apply to people who entered without permission, at least what we know so far. And so if you have that unlawful presence, your US citizen spouse can submit this application for parole in place for you, and you can receive it and become eligible to adjust your status in the United States. That will take the place of what's called the consular processing that most people who entered without permission have to go through, where they file the I-130 and then they file a waiver of inadmissibility, which is taking 4 or 5 years right now. And then finally, they leave the United States to go outside to their home country, to the consulate, where they go through an interview process, a medical exam, and things like that before they can receive their visa and return to the United States. That's what the Parole in Place program is supposed to be doing. What we are understanding at this time is that people who are subject to the permanent bar will not be eligible for this program. We are disappointed about that. I especially hate the permanent bar. I feel like it is very unjust because it is creating a punishment that is far more severe than really makes sense for the type of violation that it's trying to punish. Of course, we don't want people to cross the border illegally, but those of us who are immigration practitioners also recognize that the options that people have for entering the United States are very limited. And a lot of times people are left in a position where they don't have any other choice but to enter by crossing the river. We've all heard about hundreds of thousands of people coming into the United States and immediately seeking out an immigration agent so that they can turn themselves in and be processed into the United States. Most people are not trying to sneak in to bring in drugs. They're not trying to come in and commit crimes. They're not trying to come in and commit terrorism. Contrary to what some politicians may be saying, that is simply not true. The evidence doesn't bear that out. Most people are coming in illegally because they need help. They need to be protected from some kind of harm in their home country or at our southern border, which has become a very, very dangerous area, in large part because there is no way to safely enter the United States. So what we understand at this time is that the parole program will not benefit people who have the permanent bar. Now, the reason for that, even as disappointed as I am, I do understand the Biden administration's reasoning on this front. So I'm going to explain that as best I can. And I don't have all of the information, but this is what I do understand about this situation. As we know, a lot of different initiatives that have been brought by the Biden administration and the Obama administration previously have been subject to court challenges. DACA, which was enacted in the year 2012, is still pending in court regarding its legality. The reason it was challenged in court is because technically Congress is supposed to write the immigration law. They are the ones who are supposed to grant status to, any large numbers of people. The executive branch, the president, is expected to enforce that law. The executive branch, the president, may issue some guidance about different types of priorities, different kinds of individuals or small classes of individuals who may be subject to types of protection, but creating wholesale eligibility categories for people who previously did not have it, that is up to Congress. That is supposed to be Congress's job. And that is why so many people all these years later are clamoring still for Congress to pass the DREAM Act, Congress to codify DACA, make it part of the immigration law. Because as long as it was created by a president, it really is a little vulnerable to legal challenge. And that is what we have seen over and over again. In this case, the Biden administration has enacted something really that's pretty narrow. And in fact, even though they announced it on the anniversary of DACA and they announced it as though it was something similar to DACA, that really isn't the case. Legally, it's much more similar to what we saw with the provisional waivers, the I-601A, which was created under the Obama administration. And what that was is really just a change in procedure, a change in the way, in the order of things, and the way that things are processed for a certain narrow class of individuals. With the I-601A, what we saw at first during the first few years that it was in effect was that it was only available to spouses of U.S. citizens or immediate relatives. And what that did, that I-601A, is it allowed people to apply for their waivers of inadmissibility under very narrow categories from within the United States instead of leaving and applying from outside the United States. For many years before that, individuals who were trying to get status through a family member who were going through the consular consular process had to wait until they left the US, triggered that 10-year bar. They had to apply for the waiver of the bar once they were outside the United States, and it was leading to long separations of families while they waited for their waivers to be adjudicated. What the I-601A did was allowed people to apply for the provisional waiver from inside the US before leaving to go to their consular appointment, so that by the time they left, that step was already done and they wouldn't be gone for as long. Since the I-601A was implemented, we have seen significant reductions in the amount of time that most people have to spend separated from their family outside the US. If you do end up having to apply for a separate other waiver from outside the US, as we know, it takes many months to get finalized. And during that whole time, often families are separated. That is just creating extreme stress and hardship on that family. This new parole in place program is very similar in the sense that it is seeking to provide some relief from separation to families. It is taking a class of individuals who are already eligible to get their residency through the consular process. It is not creating a new eligibility category. It is allowing those people to change the procedure that they are going to use to get their lawful status. They do not have to leave the US in order to get their residency. They can get this parole in place, be granted the opportunity to apply for adjustment of status if they qualify, and then they can remain together in the United States with their spouse and their family. However, these are people who are already eligible, so it is not a new class of eligibility. And that is more likely to withstand a court challenge. That's the reason that the Biden administration is not currently including individuals who are subject to the permanent bar in this program. They want it to go through. They want to be able to help those families who do qualify. They want votes. And to be very frank, if Biden is not reelected, it is unlikely that this program will continue under the Trump administration. What we saw under the prior Trump administration and what we fully anticipate if there is a second one is that any kind of softening of the immigration system will be done away with, and it will become as hard and harsh and even more harsh than we've seen in the past. So if you are eligible to vote as a US citizen, please do that. I know that a lot of people don't find the current president a very compelling candidate, but the alternative is going to be very difficult for a lot of immigrant families, very difficult, as well as, a lot of other, issues that many of us care about in terms of the rule of law, the civil liberties, the ability to express one's opinion freely, the ability to make decisions about one's own life, the ability to trust our electoral process. All of these things are at stake in this election. And, voting for the lesser of two evils is a valid thing that we almost always do in US elections. Please do exercise your right to vote. I know that's not the topic of this video, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm probably going to be saying it a lot over the next several months. What I do want to say about the permanent bar is that if that does apply to you, it is worth investigating with an attorney to see if you have other options. I just met with a family yesterday where an individual had been in the United States since the 1980s. He was subject to the permanent bar. He had many entries and exits up until the early 2000s, but had been eligible to apply for a U visa for about 14 years, and no one had ever screened him for that. So it is really important to, if you are subject to the permanent bar, to understand and evaluate your other options. If Trump is reelected, many people who are subject to the permanent bar may find themselves in immigration court. And if you are in front of an immigration judge, there can be applications for residency that may work, and the permanent bar doesn't apply in that context. So the permanent bar is something that affects individuals who are applying through family members, through spouses. There are other aspects of the immigration law and other avenues to permanent residency where the permanent bar isn't applicable. So although it does block hundreds of thousands of people and it's very unjust and severe, you never know when there might be a way to get around it. Unless you consult with a trustworthy immigration attorney who has really thoroughly evaluated. So do get your case evaluated and do vote, and understand that the permanent bar is a blight in our immigration system. It's a blight on our country. However, it is the law. And until we all get better about holding our elected officials accountable, for passing laws that promote family unity, it will continue. That's my soapbox for today. I do hope that this has been helpful. If we can help you with an evaluation of your specific case, please reach out to us. Our contact information is scrolling along the bottom of the screen. If you go to our website at jlw.law, there is a button where you can click to schedule an appointment with me or any of my partners. We would be glad to meet with you, assess your eligibility for any type of benefit under the immigration law, and if you do qualify, give you an idea of what that would look like, how it would work, how much it would cost, what kind of payment plans we can work out. We want everyone who is eligible to receive the status for which they're eligible. We want everybody to get status. So we will work with you. So please let us know if we can help. I hope this has been helpful. I will look forward to seeing you all again in a week or so. Take care. Bye-bye.